Hi, I'm Nancy Ross. We're going to go over how to glaze a pot today. Glazing's a little bit like painting in the dark because our glazes don't look like they, in the bucket, don't look like they look on the final pot. To help you with that, we have a bunch of test tiles. These test tiles show you what a glaze looks like on the clay with one coat and two coats. And if you look at the bottom, you have one time and two times. So that makes it really clear what you're getting. On the thin side, the one coat, if you see the brown through, you're able to see what's on the pot underneath the glaze. On a glaze like this one, it's opaque and you can't see anything underneath it. So you have to be careful. If you want to see it, don't use an opaque glaze. We also have a chart that tells you, we keep it on the wall, and this tells you some ideas about what the glazes are and what they look like in the final result. Again, it's like painting in the dark. We can't show it to you until it comes out of the kiln, and then it's too late to change it. The pots have been sitting around, they get really dusty. So the first thing you want to do is take your pot, come to the sink, rinse out the sponge, and wipe it off. You don't need to run it under the water. You just need to wipe the dust off inside and out. It wipes off fingerprint grease and other things that might keep your glaze from adhering to the pot. Next, you have to remember that glaze sticks wherever it is. So we don't want glaze on the bottom of the pot because then it would become permanently attached to the kiln shelf and that wouldn't do anybody any good. To keep it from sticking, we have wax. Take your pot, you take a brush, take a little bit of wax, and just paint it on the bottom where you don't want any glaze to stick. Same with this one. A little bit of wax. You have to be careful. Don't let the wax run, so make sure you clean your brush off before you start painting with it. You want the wax to dry. It's a little bit wet. It'll get into the glazes, so let it dry a minute. You can set it on a paper towel. Then you have to make a decision. How do you want to finish the pot? Look at the glaze choices you have, and you can see that'll help you choose. And of course, if your teacher's there with you, that'll help you even more, give you suggestions. Once you decide what glaze to use, they've been sitting around and they have to be mixed. To mix a glaze, we use these whisks that live in this bucket here. Stir very well. Stick your hand in, and you'll see there's still thick glaze on the bottom, so I haven't stirred well enough. With my whisk, I'm going to finish stirring with my hand. If you have sensitive skin, some gloves you can use. With a pot that you're going to glaze inside and out, you start with the inside. You want to take one of the little pitchers or plastic containers, fill it with the glaze, and pour it inside about 2/3 full. You don't want to dawdle, and then you want to just pivot it and turn it. So you drain it out, and now I'm going to dip the glaze up to here. If the glaze were deeper in the bucket, I could have dipped the entire pot, but it's not, so I have to do it in 2 stages. Once it's stopped dripping, turn it right side up and set it aside to dry. Now this pot has been sitting, the top that we first glazed has been sitting long enough. It just takes a few minutes, and now I can dip the bottom half into the glaze, which I'm doing right here. Again, down, 1, 2, and up. And just set it down on the table. That has to dry, and that'll just take a minute as well. This pot has 1 glaze on it, and I want to put 2 glazes on it because I want some variation. So I'm going to go mix my second glaze. So the second glaze, I'm going to use on top is this one. And as you see, you can look inside and you can see there's quite a lot of water on top. That just tells you you really need to stir it well. When it's ready to glaze, you won't see any water separation. It will be one consistent color. I want to double dip just to here. I have a natural break on the pot, an obvious place to do it. Another reason to stop halfway down is that 2 layers of glaze often run. This way, if it decides to run, it has all this pot side to run down, and it won't run off your pot, ruin your pot. So whenever you're double dipping, don't double dip more than half of the pot, the top half of the pot. So now I'm ready to double dip the top part. I go down 1, 2, and up. Shake off the glaze, and that's done. The final thing to remember when you're finished glazing is let them sit until you can handle it. Then you need to clean the bottom off. There is glaze. Even though I've waxed, be sure and wipe the bottom of the pot. Next, before they go in the kiln, you take a waster tile and set it on that. It should, this way, if you do have some glaze run, it'll catch onto the tile and it won't wreck the rest of the kiln shelf. We take that and put it on the to-be glazed shelf in the kiln room. These are the 3 stages of the pots that we worked with. We have the bisque pot that's been cleaned and waxed and ready for glaze application. This is the bisque pot with the glaze applied. It's been wiped off the bottom. Any glaze that was on top of the wax is wiped off and placed on the waster, ready to go in the kiln. And here's your finished pot. Come out of the kiln, ready to use. Enjoy your tea. Thanks.